Yo, what's up, YouTube folks out there? I want to talk about my experience trucking with Melton truck lines. These days, I'm not doing flatbed no more. Could see myself maybe getting back into it someday. Definitely a good option for a lot of folks out there. It has its pros and cons. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video more in depth. But in this one, I just want to talk about my experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly with Melton truck lines. Let's get into it. Now, first starting out, I would recommend Melton. I would, even though my experience wasn't that great. It's one of the best, especially entry-level flatbed companies. And to be able to get into trucking fresh out of CDL school with no experience and go straight to a company that's going to make you more money, that's what you're looking for. And that's what flatbed will give you. I recommend going straight out of trucking school and getting into flatbed. Get that hands-on skill, something that nobody can take away from you. That hands-on skill that you learned. And, you know, you're going to make a little more money. You're probably going to make $5,000 to $15,000 a year more than you would, I would think, if you're doing just entry-level dry van type stuff or even refrigerated freight. But, you know, so making good money straight out of trucking, you're either going to need to get physically labor intensive where you're unloading trucks along with driving the truck, like doing a Dollar General type account with Warner or something like that. Or you're going to have to do flatbed. And I wanted to make that extra money and have that skill. And that's what I did. And this is coming from someone that, you know, I was more fit back then. I've definitely let it go now. But back then, I had gone through a phase where I was a lot more fit. It's not really that physically labor intensive, to be honest with you. You can be pretty unfit and get the job done. You know, but they give you a good entry level. They set you up at a good place, you know, hotel, and especially for entry level companies, they do well. You know, they show out. They have a nice bus that picks you up on, I think it's day one. Everybody as a group where you're going in and doing your DOT physicals and stuff like that, doing the entry-level basic stuff. And, you know, that's nice. It's nice to be, you know, given that. Maybe in the thumbnail I'll include that photo of a photo I took when I was in that bus. It's kind of nice. It was a nice little fancy ride. And, you know, you appreciate those kind of things sometimes. But you also appreciate being somewhere else that maybe you make more money. And if it's not as fancy or comfortable. But, you know, their training program is, I felt solid. I felt like it was solid. They did a good job helping me learn the skill of securing a load and tarping a load. The tarping the load, I think they could do a little better, a little more as far as, you know, more hands-on time. But, hey, they're trying to jam drivers in. There's limited time. You could go over this for weeks and months if you wanted. But I think a little bit more time from what they give would be nice. Because I'm not going to lie, I did not have much experience tarping a load. And I was not good at I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you, with tarping the load in the beginning. I'm going to be really honest with you. Even when I was out there on my own, I was having to learn as I went. And that's how it is a little bit in tarping and trucking in general. But, like, legitimately, I didn't know a whole lot of what I was doing. And, you know, I think they could do better at that. I think more time on that. A lot of time on the securement. And you're dealing with the straps and the chains and all that stuff. I was actually pretty good to go on that because I spent a lot of time doing that. I thought the tarp, it's whatever. Just you know, no, you know, especially to do it good and to do it right, to where it's not going to be blowing all over the place and you know, and stuff like that. You'll figure that out. I didn't know. I really didn't know what I was doing. It definitely could be better. Just more time. You know, you really don't get much hands-on time when you got a group of, I don't know, a dozen, maybe 24 other folks. You know, and you just don't. And it could be better. Could be better. Maybe if they had more time, or maybe an extra trainer or two to kind of give a little more time with the trainer and stuff doing it. So that was my experience with that. I had a good experience with them for the most part, but flatbed just wasn't for me, and that was really the main quirk I had at flatbed. Just not the whole time that I did flatbed. Just a little. I'm talking about my experience with just me. The whole time I did flatbed, I really did not look forward to the next load, because I just, my issue with it was there were certain loads that are just a pain in the ass to secure and dangerous. And that leads me into my experience. First off, I was with them for 9 months, and I ran pretty dang hard that time. Could be better. The miles definitely could have been better. But I guess it's flatbed and stuff. I mainly, where it's going to be less miles. So I mainly, it's coast to coast. They do Canada as well. I never got a Canada load, but I did have my hazmat, and I did do one hazmat load with them, which was really cool for me. I was really looking forward to that, and finally got me one of those. I definitely did coast to coast with them. They don't play. It's traditional OTR. You're all over the place, and that's what I wanted. That's what I needed, and I still enjoy that today in a lot of ways. So, saw a lot of sights, saw a lot of nice places, because you are going coast to coast. We did a handful of different Cali runs and all over the place, man, for real, and saw a lot. And I think I did around 50,000 miles with them. I think something like that. I think it was, I'll have to look at my notes. It could be more. It might be 75. I really can't remember, but I got it in my notes, but I can't pull it up right now. But yeah, and, overall, I would suggest it. Like I said, my experience was good, not great. I think the miles could have been a little better. I think the pay and stuff they do is great, man. I think they do a good, solid job. There's a reason why you're going to want to go there. There's a reason why people stay there long term. And they did me right when I was broke down one time, or actually early on when I was with them. The Kenworth I was in had an electrical issue breakdown, and luckily I happened to be in the Melton. So that's another thing I forgot to mention. They're in that their main terminal. They have several locations. At least last one I was there back in 2021. I started in June of 2021, and I think February of 2022, I think I was on the way out. And their home time is pretty decent for an entry-level company. And, they did right by me, man. I even had one time where I needed to go home between the time that I started employment with them and just before I got in a truck with a trainer for a certain amount of time. I had my personal car. I drove all the way from Georgia to Tulsa, Oklahoma, their main location. And they had no problem letting me go. They didn't even charge me my home time to do that. I had a particular unique kind of situation that kind of helped me have that excuse. But they did good. They could have used my home time, and then I could have had less home time that I could use when I was working. They did right by me, and I really appreciate that. I'll never forget that. I think they're good people. There's a reason why I went there. There's a reason why I went to a carrier based in Oklahoma, especially at that time with the jab. I felt like I'd be, a lot less prone to being mandated to take a vaccine for employment. And that was a consideration. I was thinking outside the box. I was also wanting to be with, some good people, some good old folks. Oklahoma is one of the best state, probably the best, most conservative state in the union, and that was a big reason why I went. And, they're good people there from what I experienced and whatnot. But, it's like anything. It's a bigger, it's kind of in between a smaller outfit and a mega carrier. So, you're going to deal with a little bit of corporate America type stuff. But they did right by me. And that was my experience personally, at least. There was even one time where you remember that trucking convoy after the one in Canada where they got, really messed up in Canada, where you had that trucker convoy shortly after that went from California over to DC. Well, I just so happened to be getting a load right there in California, not far from where they were starting, right when they were starting, I literally was able to get set up and ride the convoy with them. I got there that night and sat with the convoy truckers, the owner operators and the media people, and talked to some media that morning, talked to a bunch of people, a lot of supporters of that movement of the trucking convoy. It had gotten a lot of attention. There was some press out there. I've shook the mayor's hand, and he was a nice guy. And maybe I'll do a separate video on that. It was actually a pretty interesting experience. But the reason I'm talking about that is I rode with that convoy doing like below the speed limit. I stuck with them all the way from California, over 1 or 2 nights, all the way to, I think I had to leave them when we got to either Arizona or Texas. But I stuck with them. And, my carrier quickly found out. Matter of fact, the day as I'm first rolling out with the group, I get a call. And it's not from anyone that normally gives me a call. It's kind of a higher up. And, he's, asking about, we saw pictures of you in the media with the truck. And I'm like, yeah. But luckily they're a conservative group, and they just didn't want their truck and their brand name, plastered on it, because they agree with it and they support that stuff. But they didn't want to have their name attached to it, because they do have customers around the country and broker relations that, they're more liberal, or they don't want to be attached to something like that. They don't want to support something like that. And, that's part of why I went with a smaller carrier. That's part of why I went with a more conservative carrier, because I fit in with more of that kind of group. And, I want to play in that arena with those types of people. And, I kept it low key. I basically told them straight up, I'll give my experience later, but I basically told them, I'm stuck with the group and I can't seem to pass. I can't seem to pass them. And he understood. He understood that was my way of saying, hey, I'm riding along with them. I'm doing my load. I'm going to get to where I need to be on time. I'm doing my fuel stops where I need to stop, because they give you certain ones. I'm doing what I need to do with the job. I just happen to be with these folks too. And I just can't seem to get around. There's too much traffic. There's too much traffic. Can't get around. Can't get around them. And that should be a good video I do another time too. But, they could have chopped my nuts off for that. But they didn't. They understood that I had control of the situation. They understood that I wasn't trying to put their brand name on blast. They understood that I had control of the situation, and that I was taking part in something that they supported, but that they didn't want to be a part of. But I'm getting my job done too. And I made that very quite, plain and clear with them. It was a very good conversation we had. And, and it was fine. Maybe that was why later on, it's possible, I started having some owner-operators give me not owner-operators, but what do you call them? The Million Mile Club. I had a few of them give me a hard time. Maybe they were getting orders to give me a hard time, or maybe they were giving me a hard time because they had heard about it and they didn't like it. I don't know. But some of those million milers out there, those folks that are just so committed to staying with Melton Truck Lines, even though they'd be better off going and doing heavy haul, or something, making some real money. I mean, if you like flatbed so much, what the hell are you doing still working for, regular flatbed when you could go do heavy haul? If you like flatbed that much, that's what you should be doing at some point, to be honest. So I jerked their chain a little bit on that, but they're old-fashioned folks that like to get with a company and stick with them for decades. They like to be loyal to companies, but companies ain't loyal no more. But Melton, I think they're, kind of a more conservative company, so it's a little better. But still, you want to pick your battles on being loyal with companies. But, those million milers, they're serious, man. They ain't playing. They want to retire with those companies and stuff, apparently. So, anyway, my biggest beef, wrapping up, is that, there were certain loads very few. It was really one that I really ran across that was really unsafe, and I was trying to report that. And I wanted to get off the load. Luckily, I happened to be being replaced on the load anyway, but I had to secure it, and man, I felt really unsafe. It was dangerous, and that load shouldn't even be secured. There's somebody else that actually gotten hurt on that load securing it once, and I understand why. It's hard to describe, but you know, I got the runaround. I was giving them a call. They didn't want to hear it. They kept blowing me off, and I didn't like that because it was a safety thing. And it was really kind of the nail in the coffin of why I had to get out of flatbed. Because they tell you that, you know, if you don't want to secure a load, if you don't want to drive a load, if it's unsafe, you know, we can take you off that load, but that's not true. They could say that all they want, but it's sure as hell not the runaround I was given. And man, you know, you're told that, but when you're on a load, you need to be taking care of that load, or you could be given the opportunity to abandon a truck. I got the job done, and I got out of it, and later on I left. You know, the only other thing is, you know, they gave me the runaround at some point when I was leaving the company. I had some sort of problem happen, and I was stuck somewhere waiting for, you know, a company to come get the truck to where it could run. You know, I don't know what had happened. They sent some small repair folks from like 3 hours away to come and get me, and they kept messing up. Honestly, I don't even know if it was maybe one of their employees from Birmingham, literally, and coming and acting like they couldn't fix a truck, but they left me there for like 12 hours. But, you know, maybe that was the payback for I took like over a week of home time and then decided to quit. But I do that to make sure I could get a new job. I didn't know how the trucking industry really works. This trucking industry, you don't have to worry about it. If you want to quit, you can quit and you can get another job weeks and months later. It's not like a normal job where, you know, it's hard to get a job if you're unemployed or if you had quit a place. I was new and didn't know that, but I basically kept their truck on home time, even though I was working on finding another job and quitting. I just wanted to have something solidified before I fully quit. And maybe I could have handled that better. But that's just in hindsight. So maybe they took that a little personally, because I could have had their truck to them like a week or it was almost 2. I had a bunch of home time saved up. I was running a lot. So I think I might have been close to 2 weeks I had taken off. And, you know, that just shows you they're good on home time. You save your home time, you do it, you use it and do it how you want. They treat you fairly on all that, and I recommend them. And that was my experience. And I would recommend it once again. So check them out. And if you enjoyed this, if you were engaged and you learned something, leave a like, support the channel a little bit, share it maybe if you feel like it. You know, Melton, if you're listening, I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the good opportunity to get in the industry, and you know, it was a pleasure, to be honest. It was good to just get in the industry, and I appreciate what y'all provide. And that's it. So leave a comment if I leave the comments open, not sure, but support the channel. And thanks for engaging. What's up, little dog? Say bye. Can you say bye? You say bye to them? No? Okay. We're outie.